There's little I can say at this point that you don't already know about Christopher Nolan's seminal Dark Knight Trilogy. It brought Batman back from the graveyard of cinema and propelled him back to his rightful place among fellow cinematic legends. Using a sense of hyper-realism, Nolan defined Batman for a new generation, giving us unforgettable takes on classic characters like Bane and most notably the Joker, Batman's arch-nemesis. Even though the trilogy, The Dark Knight in particular, are nigh untouchable in the realm of film, the films aren't without their misgivings, and even though I make no qualms about these being my favorite movies ever, as Batman has been my hero as far back as I remember having heroes, I will concede to some of people's problems with them. But there's one thing that I think the trilogy nails without question, and that's the character arc of Bruce Wayne, from tragic orphan to a man who's able to finally overcome the tragedy of his past, and in doing so, allows his creation to go from urban myth to legendary hero. As all things story go, it all depends on the foundation. If you don't have a solid building block laid for the story that follows, you're doomed to fail, and the story won't resonate as it should. In this case, that means if Batman Begins didn't take the appropriate first steps for Bruce to fulfill his destiny, then everything the trilogy is inevitably building to would fall flat. It starts with Bruce's fall down the well, which is an incredibly important beat that we'll come back to later in this video, but I wanted to make note of it real quick. Ducard then gives Bruce, and by extension us, the purpose of his life and ours as Bruce's silent passenger, to become a legend. Bruce remarks later to Alfred that it can't be him that fights crime, as he's just a man and men can be ignored, destroyed, and forgotten. But if he takes on crime as a symbol, then he can transcend vigilantism and become the legend he's destined to become. What follows with Batman Begins is an excellent, if not by today's standards, formulaic superhero origin movie, or Nolan's take on the hero's journey if you prefer, and Bruce takes his first steps to becoming a legend by first becoming a hero. Bruce continues his journey in what I think objectively is one of the greatest films of all time, The Dark Knight. Bruce has solidified his status as a hero even if there are some who don't want to admit his heroism, and he moves closer to fulfilling his goal of making Gotham a better place. This is something set up in Batman Begins but is really hit on with this movie, the idea of Bruce not wanting to be Batman forever. That's a change from the comics that I love and adds to the realism of Nolan's Batverse. In the comics, Bruce's war on crime is never ending, and that's something he goes into with no misconceptions about. Comic book Batman is aware that his fight will always have to be fought, but he does it anyway, which lends him even more heroic qualities and adds to his tragic nature. But Nolan's Batman doesn't want to be Batman for the end of his days. He wants to do what we've already established, become a legend by being the one who stops crime, and then vanish back into the night, having successfully completed his mission. He sees Harvey Dent as his successor, one who won't have to hide behind a mask, making his quest to save Gotham even more legitimate than Bruce's. Enter the Joker. He's the perfect antagonist for this particular iteration of Batman, not only because he's the chaos to Batman's order and the laughter to Batman's stoicism, but because he denies Bruce the life he wants to live. He takes away Rachel, Bruce's hope for a normal life after his days of being Batman are behind him, and he corrupts Harvey Dent, the White Knight that Bruce wanted to succeed him as the new hero of Gotham. There's a great video by Lessons from the Screenplay that goes into further detail about how Joker is the ultimate antagonist and why he's so incredibly well written in The Dark Knight, but I'm going to be sticking with Bruce. In a moment of what I think to be true cinematic courage, The Dark Knight ends with the Joker winning. Even though the people of Gotham proved Joker wrong and refused to murder each other, Bruce's hopes and dreams of a normal life had been murdered in front of him. But as a testament to Bruce's own heroism and bravery, he takes the deaths on his hands. In the words of Alfred, he isn't the hero, he becomes something more. The end of the movie sees Batman as a fugitive being believed to be a murderer when a few people, including us as the audience, know that he's one step closer to becoming a legend. Finally, we reach The Dark Knight Rises, perhaps the most divisive of the Dark Knight films. But again, whatever your misgivings with this movie, I want to show you why it remains a great film, if only because of how it concludes Bruce's arc. Bruce is already broken when we meet back up with him, only coming out of retirement because of the threat Bane poses to the city, but also because of the lingering damage done to him by the Joker. He wants his journey to end, and he sees Bane as his way out, his final adversary. This is a Batman who's pushed not because he's fighting for anything, but because he wants it to end, even if it means his death. After his disastrous battle with Bane, he's imprisoned and forced to watch as Bane systematically dismantles Gotham. Driven again not by any heroic desires, but instead by rage, Bruce battles his way back to full health, but he still can't escape the prison. Why? His prison doctor explains it's because he doesn't care if he lives or dies. He essentially has no purpose other than, again, wanting an end to his journey. If he wants to escape, he'll need to find a reason to live again. Bruce then attempts his escape without the safety of the rope, symbolizing that if he escapes, it's because he truly wants to live. Now we come back to the well. This moment is beautifully powerful, as it symbolizes a larger version of the well he fell down in Batman Begins. This design is not an accident. In many ways, Bruce has been stuck down that well since the beginning of the first film, haunted by his destiny and unable to overcome the tragedy that would soon follow that event. Now here he is, again swarmed by bats, vulnerable, and now he can finally move on from the tragedy of his parents' death. And he does it. Bruce regains his purpose, his will to live, and accepts his legendary destiny in one of my favorite moments ever put to film. After the climactic showdown, Gotham has finally been saved, and Bruce can finally ride off into the sunset, leaving his legacy behind. Earlier in the film, he explains to Blake the purpose of Batman being a symbol, and that the point was that he could be anyone. He didn't have to be tied to one person. So afterwards, when Bruce is with Selina and Burma, it's beautiful because he can leave everything behind and finally live a normal, happy life, but also because he knows his mission was a success. By having Blake take up the mantle of Batman from him, it signifies that Batman can finally become a true symbol and legend, now that Batman has literally become more than just one man. The ending sequence of The Dark Knight Rises is, in my opinion, one of the most poignant and satisfactory conclusions to a trilogy of films I've ever seen. It wraps up the most important aspect, Bruce's character arc, in a way that allows him to live a happy life, something that I think takes a lot of guts for Nolan to do, considering his comic book counterpart will fight till his last breath. While I think the cinematography, musical score, acting, writing, directing are all very much deserving of praise for these films, it's Bruce's arc that anchors the entire trilogy and serves as the primary reason for the films to become legends in their own right.